presentation, feel free to shout your questions out by using your microphone if you're feeling brave enough. But if you're not, you are more than welcome to raise your hand and we can address your question that way, or you can also use the chat function to ask your questions as well. So thank you everybody for joining us this morning. My name is Jessica Ponti. I am one of the school counselors at Calvert High School, and my colleague, Dr. Perry, and I. Dr. Perry, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Dr. Perry. I'm also one of the school counselors. I have the alphabet A through E for my caseload.
Let's do a little introduction of everybody this morning, too. I know Miss O'Neill and Miss Gray or other counselors are on here as well. So Miss O'Neill, would you like to introduce yourself? Sorry to kind of drop that on you.
It's all good. Hi, I'm Miss O'Neill. I'm one of the school counselors. My caseload, our last names F through J.
And Miss Gray, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Miss Gray, and my caseload is R through Z.
So that is your Calvert High School counseling team. And I guess I didn't say this, but I work with students' last names K through Q. So we always like the chance to put our faces with names. So any chance we get to introduce ourselves, we love that. So Dr. Perry and I are going to be presenting information today on the SAT and the ACT and standardized testing. So without further ado, let's get this party started. There we go. Okay, so the SAT and the ACT, we're going to start out about talking about what they are. So the SAT and ACT are standardized tests, and basically their purpose is to measure the likelihood of a student's success in college or at post-secondary education. The most typical use for these tests is as a portion or a part of the college application. And one thing to keep in mind is that this is just a part of a student's college application. It is not the end all be all. If they do bad or good on an SAT, it doesn't mean that they are definitely going to get in or they're definitely not going to get into a college. It is just a part of that application. Another thing that SAT and ACT scores can be used for within kind of the college realm is to help a student apply for scholarships. So a lot of times they're used in that criteria when students are applying. So let's move on.
The SAT is broken up into 3 different sections. There's the reading, the math, and the writing section. The writing section is optional, but we do encourage students to do that essay portion because it may make your scores boost up a bit or make your submission stand out. Scores are out of 1,600. Is my score good? There's different platforms that you can go on to kind of research what's a good score, what's a mid-range score, what's a low score. So that is also good information to have and what the individual colleges are looking for. The College Board website is very good for that under the college tab that you can look and see what are the majority SAT scores that these schools are looking at for acceptance. And these are your prep opportunities. Khan Academy students really utilize that one quite a bit. Your PSAT scores are a good judgment of and predictor of how you may perform on the SAT. So looking at that and seeing where there's areas of improvement, areas that you need to get more teaching on, and then getting that teaching from your resources like your teachers at the high school. And then finally, there is an SAT prep course that our parent association does here at Calvert High School.
And we'll talk about that prep course a little bit later, so stay tuned for more details on that. But before we move ahead, I want to take a minute to show everyone how they can access and view kind of typical scores for both the SAT and the ACT and what's kind of generally accepted for students for a particular college. So the College Board website, this is the same place where students would log on to register for the SAT. They also offer a college search tool as well. And I know Miss Gray and Miss O'Neill had talked about this at our last session. But what you would do is log on to College Board. Now your student is able to log into their account. All students basically have a College Board account. They don't have to, but they're able to log in. Or you can simply do it without logging in. But you would click on the college search tab here. And then if you wanted to search for a particular school, you can type in the name. So for example, I'm going to type in University of Maryland because that is a very big one for our students. So if I look at University of Maryland College Park, and this kind of information can be found for any school. So there's a profile for every single college on here. But the admissions tab, I feel like, provides us with the best information for students when it comes to applications. Because that is a question we get often from students is, well, are my SAT scores good? Are they good enough? And in my mind, a score is only good if it gets you where you want to go. So here's how your student can find out that information. So again, you're going to search for the school, click on the admissions tab. And then here they have information for a typically accepted freshman. So this is not, the end all be all. If your student is above or below this range, it doesn't mean that they're guaranteed to get in or not guaranteed to get in. Again, this is just kind of the typically accepted range for students. So for University of Maryland, for example, they're looking for scores between 1370 and 1510. So they're really looking for a student who has done a really great job on the SAT. And for ACT, they're looking for 31 to 34. We'll talk about the SAT or the ACT in a minute about typical scores. But this is a really good tool to kind of be able to determine whether or not your students' scores are in line with what their college is looking for. And we'll talk about a few more things, but I wanted to bring this one up to start. Also, every college's website has like a profile of a freshman on it. So that's a really great place to start. Let's move on now. So the SAT is going to have a format change for the next round of testing, which will be in March. So from here on forward, the test is going to be in a digital format, which means students will take it on their computer. Previously, it was old school pen and paper, but from here on out, they will take it on their laptop. So just know that when your student registers and when they sign up to take the test on that Saturday that they choose to test, they will have to bring a laptop or other device so that they're able to do their testing on there. Now, this past fall, students took the PSAT, and the PSAT has moved to a digital format. So if your student has taken the PSAT this past school year, the SAT is going to be a very similar format. But if they haven't, you just want to let them know to be prepared that it's going to be a digital format moving forward.
Okay, so the ACT has 4 sections: English, reading, math, and science, and the writing is also optional. Those scores range from 1 to 36 for each section, and composite score is your overall score. And again, places to find out what is a good score, as previously mentioned, College Board, CAPEX, and individual college websites.
So now here's a question that we get a lot from students is what's the difference between the SAT and the ACT? So you just heard a description of the two, and they're very similar. I always tell students they're like Walmart and Target, like they're almost like opposing companies that are very similar, that offer a very similar service. But the main difference is the subjects that are covered. The SAT has reading, writing, and math, and the ACT has reading, writing, math, and science. So the ACT has that additional science piece. So if your student is really good at science and has a really good penchant for science, it may be a good idea to have them take the ECT. Scoring is a little bit different. As you saw, the scales are different, just a different type of score. And the depth of material is a little bit different. The SAT kind of goes a little bit more in depth because it covers less subjects. The ACT tends to be a little bit more, I don't want to say surface level, but it doesn't go as deep on a knowledge level as the SAT does. So then the age-old question, which test is better to take? And this is an unpopular opinion with students, but I recommend that students take both because honestly, you really never know which one you're going to perform better on. And the whole goal of this, if your student is taking one of these standardized tests, the whole goal is for them to get the best score they can to represent them in the best light so they have the best chance to get into their college or university. So really taking both provides them with the opportunity to be able to see which one they do better on. Now, in terms of what colleges require, it used to be a thing back like when I was in high school, so this may be something that you guys have heard of, but it used to be that the ACT was sort of the West Coast college test that colleges on the West Coast required. That is not the case anymore. Colleges pretty much accept both the ACT and the SAT, both. They'll take both very easily. So your student shouldn't have any issues in needing one over the other, but it's always important to check with colleges just to make sure that that is the case. Another thing your student can do too, if you don't want to commit to paying for the SAT or ACT, because the registration does get kind of expensive. Another thing that you can do is have them take a practice test just to kind of see which one they do better on and kind of, go from there based on whichever test they do better on and kind of have them move forward with that testing.
Okay. SAT, ACT, and CSM. CSM does not require the SAT or the ACT scores as part of their application, but they are more so used for placement tests. So CSM considers SAT math score of 530 and an English score of 480 to be college ready. They consider the ACT math score of 21 and the ACT English score of 21 to be college ready. So these tests are pretty good for CSM to kind of get a gauge of where to place your student for their college classes.
So the answer class prep opportunity, we kind of talked about this briefly before, and I want to bring this up because this is another really great tool. So the answer class is a live virtual prep class opportunity that's available to our students. And then the next kind of round that will be offered for like Calvert High students is in February. So February 10th, 13th, and 15th. So this is pretty timely. If your student is looking to take the SAT this spring, this is a pretty great opportunity for them to review. Now, as an added bonus, if your student decides to sign up for the answer class, and I think the cost is about $149, 20% of that tuition is collected and donated to our wonderful PTSO. So it's a great fundraiser for them. You're supporting a great organization. And if you register at least a week before, the fee even is a little bit cheaper. They'll take off $20. And there are a lot of different opportunities. If those dates don't work for you, there's a lot of different classes through other high schools that students are able to sign up for as well. And I have heard from students sometimes, as counselors, we hear the real deal from students, whether stuff is really worthwhile and really beneficial to them. I have heard quite a few students sing praises for the answer class. So this has been a really good thing for students and an opportunity if you're looking for an opportunity for your student to be able to prep for the SAT or ACT.
So accommodations. If your student has accommodations through an IEP or a 504 plan, they may be able to use the accommodations when taking either the ACT or the SAT. You must have pre-approval from College Board or ACT. You must have pre-approval from College Board and work with Ms. Morris or Mr. Sermon on how to get this approval.
And if your student has accommodations for the SAT through College Board, they'll be able to use them for AP exams as well. So that's definitely worthwhile. But without that approval, they won't be able to use them. So definitely something worth looking into. So how to register for the SAT and the ACT. So everything is done completely online. There's no paper mailing in. Students don't come to the counseling office and register. It is all completely done online on the website. So the SAT is done through the College Board. Their website is collegeboard.org, and the ACT is done through their website. ACT.org or actstudent.org will get you there. And with this, there's a deadline to register for the test, which Dr. Perry is going to chat about in a second, but you want to make sure you register by the deadline so that your student is able to sit and take the test. And just some other kind of things to keep in mind. And we don't have this listed on the slide, but the tests each cost around $60 or so. So it is a bit of a financial burden. So just be aware of that. Now, if your student is on free or reduced lunch or there are different financial situations at home, please have your student talk with their counselor. We can provide them with a fee waiver so that they can, access the testing for free. And they are able to use a fee waiver up to twice for the SAT and up to 4 times for the ECT. And we would talk your student through that if that was something that they qualified for. Another thing is to plan to take the SAT more than once. Typically, student scores go up, 100 to 200 points from their first to second time taking the test. So definitely your student's going to fight you on this, but definitely consider having them taking it more than once just because their scores can go up. They know what to expect. They know what the test looks like, and having that familiarity and comfort definitely will help them increase their scores. A goal for students too is to have their scores ready and set to go by the end of their junior year. And the thought behind that is because college applications are going to be very busy in the fall for students. So if a student can walk into their senior year with their SAT and scores are all set to go and all ready to be sent to colleges, that's one less thing they're going to have to worry about, which means they can focus their time and energy on the other pieces of their application. So that's a strong recommendation to get their scores done this year. And when students can send their scores to colleges, they receive 4 registrations, or 4 test scores rather, to be sent to colleges with each registration for the SAT and the ACT. And my advice too is to take advantage of that, because if you wait and official score reports have to be sent to the college when the student's applying, they're going to have to pay $16 per college. And so it doesn't seem like a lot, but your student's going to be paying to register for the SAT or ACT, potentially to send those scores down the line to multiple colleges, which adds up pretty quickly. And then there's application fees for colleges that go along with that. So the financial burden of college can end up being a really good thing, and that's just applying to get in. So I always like to give parents advice to save money where you can. And my advice is to take that seriously when your student registers. Think about what schools to send it to. A big thought that I always hear from parents and students is, well, I don't really know if my scores are going to be good. I don't know if I want to send them. But here's the thing. If your student, let's say your student decides to apply to Towson and they're going to officially send their scores from College Board. If they don't send their scores now when they're registering and wait to send them in the fall, when they send them in the fall, that score send is going to include every one of their test dates or test administrations, I guess I want to say. So they'll see all the scores anyway, long story short. So save yourself the money, save yourself the headache, and really take advantage of those. And I know sometimes students don't know or things change, and you can always go back in and resend them. But if you are thoughtful about that, that could potentially save you some money and headaches down the line as well.
Okay, so the test date chart, this was going to be emailed to you, so you will have it at your fingertips. And of course, these things are located at collegeboard.org for the SAT and actstudent.org for the ACT. But for the SAT, the next test date is March 9th, and you have to register by February 23rd. For the ACT, the next test date is February 10th, and you were supposed to register by January 5th. So now we're in the late registration period where you can register by January 19th if you still wanted to shoot for that test date. If you want to shoot for the next one is April 13th, and that registration period is during the month. The deadline is in March.
So those all important deadlines. So, and I know we as counselors, we all have this printed out in our offices. Here's my hot pink copy. So this is something we reference often. This is something we're sharing with your juniors as we're meeting with them this week, next week, and the following week. So I will be emailing this out to you guys as well. So it's something you can reference and think about, because I don't want, for the ACT, I don't want anybody to have to pay that late fee. So I'm all about saving money. So the school day SAT, this is something, unfortunately, that is not going to be happening this year. So in past years, the county paid for juniors to take the SAT during the school day, but unfortunately, this is not something that's going to be happening this year. So I just want to make sure we put this out there so that this is not something that your student is expecting to be able to do. So they will have to register for the SAT or ACT on their own if they choose to take it. There will not be an opportunity to take it during the school day this year.
Okay, so Maryland college testing policies. In the past, many colleges have chosen to make the SAT and the ACT optional for students. And we're suggesting that you go ahead and take it because it'll help you be considered for scholarships. It is important for you to do your own research to see how impactful taking either test or both tests are for the colleges that your student wants to apply to. I did have a student this year who wants to apply to scholarships. I do have a connection at one of the universities that she was applying to, and the connection asked, did she take the SAT or the ACT? And that student said no. So that automatically took her out of that possibility of that particular scholarship at that time. And now that senior is considering taking this test, but it is a little bit late in the game at this point. But as you can see, it is very impactful to take these tests to be considered for scholarships.
And it could also be the thing that sets a student apart too in their application. So unpopular opinion with your students, but they should be taking it. Really, it does benefit them. So sending test scores to colleges, and this is something you don't necessarily have to worry about now, but I want to make sure this is something we talk about so you know what to expect in the fall and moving forward. And again, it really has to do with, choosing to send the scores when a student registers. I kind of talked about that, but that's a big thing. So if your student is required to or chooses to submit SAT scores as a part of their college application process, colleges will typically accept those score reports in two ways. The first is self-reported, where basically the student either enters their own scores on their application or they upload a screenshot or a download of their scores from their College Board or ACT account. So that one is pretty simple and is something that a student can easily do without having to work with an outside organization or pay fees to get that done. However, a lot of colleges, especially I feel like the bigger schools, they will want an official score report sent directly from the testing agency. So directly from College Board, directly from ACT. Now with this, I feel like there's two kind of barriers that happen with this. The processing times, it is not simple. It's not something your student can log on and request today and have it sent tomorrow. Typically, take almost 2 weeks, which I feel like is really crazy. But a student really needs to plan ahead and be aware of that, because if everything else is received by the deadline, but their SAT scores are not, their application is considered incomplete and they may not have it in by the deadline. So this is something that trips a lot of students up. So I wanted to share this today so you can keep this in the back of your mind for, the fall and beyond. So in addition to that long processing time, there's also costs, as I mentioned earlier. So about $16 to $18 per school that report is sent to. So again, my advice rather is to take advantage of those free test score sends, just because it can save you money and maybe a headache in the fall, which is always the goal. So just something to consider for now.
So Chesapeake College Plan is an organization that works with each of the high schools. Mrs. Kidwell is our representative, and she can help with the college search process, college applications, scholarships, and FAFSA, filling out that form. She will be at CHS on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and can meet with individuals as well as families, parents, to answer questions and assist with any of those processes. Her email is listed on the slide, and I'm sure we will send this out to you as well.
Miss Kidwell's great. I can't say enough good things about her. We're so fortunate to have her. Her services are free too, so something to think about there too. So I want to switch gears a little bit. Dr. Perry and I were joking that we got stuck with the most boring topic because SAT and ECT really is boring. It's not very exciting. So maybe we'll pump some excitement into our presentation today. We want to talk about dual enrollment in early college. And these are two programs at CSM that enable your student to earn college credit while they're still in high school. So I'm going to start off by talking about dual enrollment. This is kind of a more common one that's been around for a while. But basically what this is that Calvert High students can earn CSM credits through CSM while they're still in high school. And this works in two different ways for our students. The first way is that students can actually go to CSM or take classes online directly through CSM, like a normal quote unquote college student. And this is open to juniors and seniors. Juniors can do it, but to be honest, we don't have a lot of juniors who do this during the school year because they still have to have a full schedule, and then they would take that class in addition to a full schedule at Calvert High. So that's kind of a big thing for students. But I will tell you, it is a very popular option for seniors because potentially if your student has already taken all of their graduation requirements and can have a shortened schedule as a senior, this can be a really good opportunity to sort of supplement if they wanted to do a shortened schedule as a senior at Calvert High, but then maybe take a few classes at CSM. That's a pretty common thing that a lot of our students do. So there is a process that students have to go through and do this and register. They can do this either during the summer or during the regular school year. And I'm seeing more and more students choose to take advantage of this in the summer. There are a couple requirements they have to meet in terms of GPA or test scores, but we can work with students through that. But just know the deadlines for this are to register for summer classes. A student has to have done that paperwork by April 15th, and the deadline to register to take classes in the fall is July 15th. So I always tell students, please do not wait until the last minute, especially when it comes to that July deadline, because as counselors, we do not work every day over the summer. So if a student reaches out to us on July 14th, we may be on the beach in the Outer Banks, and I'm really sorry, but we're going to be focused on our time on the beach, not your student. No offense. So just make sure your student is really asking us ahead of time. so we can get them what they need. But all of that information can be found on the CSM website, which I'm going to put in the chat in a second, so you guys can look at that. And if your student is interested in that, I would just have them reach out to their counselor. We can walk them through that process. It's a pretty easy thing, but it does require a little bit of commitment from the student to get it done. Now, the other way students can do dual enrollment and earn some college credits is by taking some classes at Calvert High School and then earning CSM credit for their, their time and effort in those classes. So currently the classes we only offer really like 2 right now this school year. So Comp and Rhet, Honors Composition and Rhetoric, which is currently a junior and senior English class. So some of your students may be enrolled in Comp and Rhet right now. And if they're not in it this year, they could potentially take it next year as a senior English class. And the other kind of class is pre-calculus. So if your student is in pre-calc, or will take pre-calculus next year, or accelerated algebra 2 pre-calc, this is another class that we offer the opportunity in. Now coming up next year, if your student is in Comp and Rhet this year as a junior, they will have the opportunity to take Honors Composition and Literature as a senior English class, and that will also work the same way. And that is only if your junior is in Composition and Rhetoric this year, because Composition and Rhetoric is a prerequisite for them to be able to take Honors Composition and Literature. But basically, your student can get these classes, or earn CSM credits rather, for these classes for free. So if your student is currently sitting in these classes and this is something you're interested in, talk to your students about it, because there's online paperwork that has to be completed by February 2nd. And if you talk to your student and they have no idea what you're talking about, let us know and we'll make sure you get that information, because it really is a great opportunity because it's free. So dual enrollment is a really great opportunity for students to, earn some college credits while they're still in high school.
So CSM also has the early college program. CHS students can take their classes their senior year at CSM. This is typically for a student that just has an English or a math left to do their senior year. Students are not able to take any courses at Calvert High School or CTA if they do the early college program. They are basically going to be at the CSM campus all day finishing up. Most must have the graduation requirements completed, or most of them completed, and let's see, a GPA of a 2.75, as well as service learning state testing also completed. You can participate in sports and after school activities, and the application for this is due by February 15th. Please have your student, or you can touch base with us if you are interested in that program.
And typically they will offer like an orientation, not an orientation session, an information session. And I'm just thinking, I haven't heard anything yet. That doesn't mean they're not going to offer anything. It just be that they may have not communicated that to us yet. But I put their websites, both for dual enrollment and the early college program, in the chat. On the early college website, they have a presentation uploaded where you can click through and kind of get more in-depth information if that was something you were interested in. But they are both really great programs for students. So to kind of wrap up today, that's about all we have for you. Like, again, we always joke this is kind of a boring topic, so, we roll with it. But our next junior breakfast session will be on Thursday, February 8th, again at 7:30 on Teams. And Michelle Kidwell will be presenting about information about the college application process and what you can expect that your student will go through in the fall to get their applications completed for school. So she is very wonderful. She will be here to talk to you throughout the whole process. And if this is something you wanted to sign up for, you would have to register again online. And I'll put that link on the chat, or in the chat rather. And another thing too, because we are currently meeting with students in their English classes. So what we're doing is we're meeting with them to plan for senior year, make sure they know, what classes they need to graduate, what things they need to do to meet graduation requirements if they have service learning hours or anything else that's needed. So that's kind of part one of our conversation. And then the second part is for us to talk about what their plans are for after they graduate. So what you can expect as parents is by the end of this month, we will have met with your student individually, as well as like a little presentation that we give them about planning for life after high school. So you can chat with your student and say, hey, have you met with your counselor yet? You know, you can kind of carry on that conversation if you'd like. And one thing we always present to students is that, you know, as counselors, we have a lot of information to share, but we don't have the opportunity to see students in front of us every day, like in a classroom environment or something like that. So we get creative in how we share information with students. And how we do that is a couple of different ways. We send out a lot of emails. So if you tell your student to keep up on their school emails, Ms. Ponti's always probably sending stuff. They probably always see my name. And as parents, you all probably see information that is sent from Schoology. So if anything's going on, it's going to be sent out in those ways. And we also do remind text messages for students. And there's one specifically for the junior class. And this will just include things like, hey, today's the deadline to register for the SAT, you know, or just other happenings that are going on that they would need to know about. And this carries into next year when they're seniors. So like right now, for example, our seniors have to order their cap and gowns by January 15th to avoid a price increase. So it would be things like that that will be sent out next year. So it's probably kind of more for senior year, to be honest, but it carries through and it is a good idea for you to sign up or for your students to sign up. So that information for the remind is on the screen as well. So and I didn't give everybody an opportunity for questions, but does anyone have any questions this morning for us? And again, you can feel free to unmute your mic or put stuff in the chat, whatever's easiest for you. All right, well, I guess we're all good to go now. But I will be sending out some of those documents today in a chat, or in an email rather, along with a recording to today's presentation. So if you wanted to share that with anyone who wasn't able to come, but we appreciate all of you for giving up your time to meet with us this morning and listen to us drone on about a boring topic. We appreciate you. But I hope that everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you for joining us. Hope to see you in February. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.